The starlit storm raged across the forbidden galaxy as the ancient citadel of the Eternal Knights stirred with a power that had slept for 1,000 cycles, and the alien queen who had once ruled these distant realms felt her essence awakening, through fractured memories and burning echoes of her fallen empire. A deep pulse trembled across the cosmic void, and the last surviving knight named Raylon stood upon a shattered balcony, watching the streaks of energy twist like serpents through the darkness. While he whispered a prayer to forces that had long abandoned the galaxy, the windless void shifted around him as the astral dust parted, and a voice older than creation itself rose from the throne chamber, calling to him with an authority that stirred fear and devotion in equal measure, and Raylon knew that his queen had returned from her ashes. When he stepped into the heart of the citadel, he saw her rising from the cocoon of light with obsidian armor, reforging itself over her frame, and eyes glowing with an awakened fury that could crush entire star systems with a single command. Queen Arhyssa breathed for the first time in centuries, and her voice trembled the foundations of the citadel as she declared that the forbidden galaxy would bow once more for her return, marked the end of the era of silence and the beginning of the great rebirth. Raylon bowed low, though his heart raced with dread because the galaxy had changed since her last reign and enemies beyond imagination had risen in her absence, and he feared she did not yet understand the danger awaiting her reborn empire. Queen Arhyssa stepped down from the light throne and placed a hand on the knight's shoulder, her strength overwhelming yet her touch carrying a strange gentleness that had never existed in the tales of her past, and she asked him what remained of her dominion. Raylon explained that the nebular hordes had conquered the outer systems, and the void-born choir had consumed the star lanes, and the ancient allies of the Eternal Knights had fallen or scattered, while only a few strongholds remained untouched by corruption. The queen listened without blinking, letting every truth seep into her reborn consciousness, and her expression hardened, like crystallized fire, as she vowed that no invader would claim her galaxy, and that every threat would soon tremble beneath her restored power. A distant thunder echoed through the astral horizon, and Raylon felt the tremor of approaching warships, as their engines tore through space, carrying the insignia of the nebular hordes, whose ruthless commander had sworn to destroy any remnant of the Eternal Knights. Queen Arhyssa turned toward the horizon, and the glow of her armor intensified until the air hummed with ancient magic, and she declared that she would meet the invader head-on because she had not been reborn to hide, nor flee, nor cower behind her soldiers. The citadel gates opened with a roar as she marched into the open expanse, where the ruins of her once flawless empire stretched across the galaxy like broken bones. And Raylon followed trembling yet resolute, for he had sworn allegiance not to the throne, but to the queen herself. The battle horns of the nebular hordes shattered the silence, and countless ships descended like hungry metal predators, casting shadows across the last stronghold of the Eternal Knights, and the invading commander demanded the surrender of all who dwelled within the ancient citadel. Queen Arhyssa raised her voice, and the power within her exploded outward in a wave of shimmering force that halted the descent of the enemy fleet. For her rebirth had granted her strength that surpassed her former self, and the cosmic storm bent around her like a living shield. The invaders hesitated, for their sensors detected an energy reading that rivaled the ancient titans of legend, and fear rippled through their ranks as they realized the queen they believed dead was alive, and stronger than the stories that haunted their nightmares. Raylon stepped beside her with his sword drawn. Though he knew his blade meant little against such overwhelming odds, yet he stood because he believed that if she had been reborn, then the galaxy still had hope. Queen Arhyssa lifted a hand, and the sky split open, revealing an ancient star forge awakening in response to her command, and streams of molten astral light poured downward, forming spectral warriors that resembled the Eternal Knights of old, their armor forged from living starlight. The nebular hordes opened fire, unleashing barrages of destructive energy weaponry, yet every blast bent away from the queen, as if the universe itself refused to harm her, and the reborn spectral knights advanced, with silent determination cutting through the air like radiant phantoms. The first shockwave shook the galaxy itself as spectral blades clashed with invading warships, and Raylon charged into the battlefield with renewed courage, feeling the power of his queen flowing through the ground beneath his feet like the heartbeat of a resurrected god. Queen Arhyssa unleashed a cry that echoed through realms beyond mortal comprehension, and her wings of astral flame erupted across the battlefield, expanding her presence until she seemed to stand at the center of creation itself, commanding both past and future. The Nebula commander panicked and ordered his ships to retreat, yet it was too late, for the Queen had already sealed the stargates, with a gesture trapping every invader in the battlefield that would become their grave. Halon carved a path through metallic horrors and mechanical beasts, while the spectral knights fought in perfect unison, forming shields of starlight that protected him as he advanced toward the heart of the enemy formation. Trusting that his queen watched over him, Queen Arhyssa ascended into the storm, her energy spiraling into a vortex of radiant destruction, and every star in the vicinity flickered in response, as if bowing to her rebirth, while the forbidden galaxy roared with pride at the return of its rightful ruler. Queen Arhyssa descended from the swirling storm of cosmic power, her armor glowing like molten dawn as she strode across the battlefield with an aura so immense that even the fractured ruins of the citadel vibrated beneath her returning strength, as if bowing to her presence once more. The Nebula hordes unleashed their final reserve of colossal war machines, gigantic constructs powered by stolen star cores, but the Queen raised a single hand, and the very starlight around her warped into a spiraling shield of radiant force that dissolved their weapons before they could touch her. Raylan watched in awe as she commanded energies that no mortal should wield, forming spears of light that surged upward like blazing pillars, piercing through enemy fortresses and tearing apart the strongest dreadnoughts of the Horde as if they were made of brittle glass. The Nebula commander screamed in frustration from within his armored hull, ordering all remaining forces to converge on the Queen. But fear rippled through the ranks, for none wished to be the first to face her wrath, and many soldiers faltered as her gaze swept across the battlefield. Queen Arhyssa stepped forward, her voice resonating with ancient authority as she declared that no invader would survive the day, and that the forbidden galaxy would once again belong to the Eternal Knights, whose spirits watched from beyond the veil. Raylan charged ahead, battling through waves of Nebula soldiers, using every ounce of his knight training, while feeling the surge of hope strengthening him. Because for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a leader capable of challenging the darkness. A shockwave burst from the center of the battlefield as the Queen crossed blades with the Nebula commander, who had finally descended in his towering exosuit, fueled by unstable starcore energy, and their clash sent fissures of cosmic energy tearing through the ground. The commander roared defiantly, claiming that the age of the Eternal Knights had ended forever. But Queen Arhyssa countered with a strike so powerful that the sky tore open, revealing swirling auroras that danced in response to her unleashed might. Raylan shielded his eyes as the shockwave ripped past him, and the force of their collision sent the remnants of enemy warships spiraling into the distance, while the spectral knights absorbed the impact and converted it into radiant energy that empowered the Queen further. The Nebular commander invoked with desperate fury, swinging massive energy blades infused with destructive force. But Queen Arhyssa moved like a storm incarnate, weaving through his attacks with the grace of a celestial predator and delivering counterstrikes that fractured his armor. Their battle became a symphony of cosmic power, echoing across the galaxy as stars trembled and ancient relics hidden in forgotten systems awakened, sensing that their queen had returned to reclaim her throne and restore balance to the fractured universe. Raylan pressed forward, slicing through the final ranks of Nebula soldiers and pushing toward the throne ridge where the Queen and the commander clashed with such intensity that even time itself seemed to slow around them, as if afraid to interrupt the duel. The commander grew desperate, amplifying his exosuit to its peak until flames of unstable energy erupted from every joint. But the Queen did not retreat. Instead, she advanced with unwavering resolve and struck the exosuit with a burst of pure astral force that sent the Titans stumbling backward. Queen Arhyssa raised both arms, summoning the full power of the eternal star forge that hovered above the citadel, and streams of living starlight cascaded down to her, forming an enormous blade sculpted from ancient cosmic memory and bound by the will of generations of eternal knights. The commander screamed in fear as he recognized the weapon of legends, for no being had wielded it since the first queen of the Eternal Line. And he realized too late that he had awakened a force far beyond his comprehension. Raylon felt the ground tremble as the queen lifted the astral blade, and he knew the battle was approaching its climax for the Forbidden Galaxy. Its Zelf hummed in anticipation, as if preparing to witness history reborn in radiant fire. The queen launched herself at the commander with blinding speed, and their final clash erupted in a beam of light so powerful that it shot through the heavens, tearing a rift in the fabric of space and sending ripples that would be felt across distant civilizations. When the light faded, the commander's exosuit shattered into fragments that scattered across the battlefield like dying stars, and his final scream was swallowed by the void as Queen Lytheria delivered the decisive strike that obliterated the last remnant of the Nebula invasion. Silence fell across the battlefield as the spectral knights knelt in acknowledgement of her victory, and the surviving Eternal Knights bowed with newfound devotion, knowing their queen had restored their honor through unmatched strength and unbroken resolve. Halon approached her with reverence, his armor scorched and battered, but his spirit stronger than ever as he gazed upon the queen, who stood tall amid the swirling dust of victory, radiating a power that promised rebirth for their fractured galaxy. Queen Lytheria lifted her gaze to the distant horizon, sensing new dangers stirring in the depths. A forbidden space, because although she had won this battle, she knew the true war for the Eternal Knights had only just begun.